Hey babes, and welcome back to the Kiki Show. So this is a show where I talk about whatever I want and there's nothing you can do about it. And when I say nothing, I mean nothing you can do about it. And today, y'all, we're going to be talking about reading, literally the greatest thing that's ever happened to planet Earth. And now, in case y'all didn't know, your girl loves to read. And when I say love, I mean love. Like, I'm laying her down on the bed gingerly. Gingerly? Yeah, I think that's a word. And making sweet, sweet love to her. Like, me and reading, we're tight. We're thick as thieves, let me tell you something. And I've been reading for quite literally as long as I can remember. I think I gained consciousness and I just knew how to read. I remember when I was younger, my mom would sit me down with flashcards that had different words on them and teach me how to read these words. And by the time I was about 4 or 5, I actually learned how to sit down and read a book. And by a book, I mean those children picture books. My first one was actually Go Dog Go by E.B. White. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of that one, but it is a masterpiece. The plot, brilliant. The illustrations, beautiful. The humor made me laugh so hard I almost threw up as a kid. I was serious about this book. Everyone else in my class, they were reading The Rainbow Fish or The Berenstain Bears, but no, they didn't know, or Dr. Seuss, but no, they didn't know E.B. White like me. I was a number one fan, and I read that book all day, all night, 24/7. I always had that book on me to the point where it was falling apart. I was literally just so obsessed with the book that it got to a point that my parents sat me down and they were like, if you don't stop reading this book and reading something else, we're gonna throw it away. That's how often I had that book on me. I was strapped when it came with that book. So of course I had to make a couple sacrifices and I was like, okay, fine, whatever, take me to the bookstore and I'll see if I can find anything else. And thank God they did, because I discovered a new genre, which was pop-up books. I had this huge book that was all about fairies. I was obsessed with fairies as a kid. Tinkerbell was my girl. Obsessed with fairies. And I had a pop-up book that was all about fairy life. So where they would live, what they ate, how they made friends, I was about to say how they made love. No, they did not mention about how they made love. They did mention how fairies were made, but I think it was something for every child's laughter, for every time a child laughs, a fairy is born. And I developed a whole new obsession. You know what? Yeah, that should actually be a theme for this podcast, obsession, because I'm obsessed with reading. I'm obsessed with books. I'm obsessed with collecting books. And there is no cure, unfortunately. This is what will kill me. But this book was a whole new obsession. I remember reading a part that said, if you stuff blueberries into trees, little holes in the trees caused by worms or whatever, then a fairy will start visiting your house more often, because I guess they're really into blueberries. So of course, little 7-year-old me was stuffing blueberries in the pine tree in my backyard and getting excited when I saw that they would disappear, not realizing that, birds and squirrels and raccoons exist, also little brothers. I have no doubt in my mind that one of my brothers would eat those blueberries, which is honestly kind of disgusting. Well, eventually, while that obsession grew, my parents once again sat me down and said, girl, okay, we need to figure something out, because you tend to focus on one book and you won't read anything else. So my dad was like, how about we get into chapter books? And of course, 7-year-olds don't like chapter books. They like pictures and colorful stuff. So I was like, hell no, who do you think you're talking to right now? Okay, I'm the fairy queen. And he was like, listen, chapter books are the way to go. Trust me. He's like, because you don't have to look at the picture and have the picture force you to think what you want. You can imagine anything you want. He's like, if that fairy is blonde and you don't want her to be blonde and you want her to look like you can imagine her to look like you. You can be a fairy if you read a chapter book. Convinced. He convinced me. I was like, you know what? You're so right. Let's go to the library. Let's go get myself a couple chapter books and I'm going to try this out. So we went to the local library. Shout out libraries. They are a safe space. Every librarian deserves to be paid as much as like a doctor. I honestly believe that. Like, they are our last, what's the word? Standhold. They're the last place you can go where you don't have to pay money to exist. And they're so full of resources. If you want to learn another language, you can go on your library's website and get a subscription to learn languages. Like, I know my public library, they have Mango languages, and you can learn any language you want. If you want to learn how to file your taxes, they'll teach you for free. If you need to print some stuff, usually it's not for free, but it's fairly cheap. If you want to learn how to drive, they'll teach you. If you want to rent out a movie, it's for free. If you want to rent out a book, free. Audiobook, free. All of it, free. Music, free. Everything is free. And I love it. It's the last place on earth where you can exist without being forced to pay to breathe air. And honestly, I'm like so scared for our future because I'm pretty sure they're going to try and pass something to get libraries banned. So in the future, if you guys see anything about literally anyone trying to get libraries to be banned, please sign any petition you can. Donate to your local libraries. Get a library card. Like, it really does support them. And if you're not into physical books and you like audiobooks or digital books, get the Libby app. All you have to do is have a library card, connect your library card to the app, and you have all their audiobooks, all of their ebooks, everything right in your phone, in your iPad, and whatever you use to read electronic books. Please, please, please go support your local libraries. It would mean a lot to them. I get so stressed about the future of the world. Anyways, so my dad took me to our local library and I checked out a couple of chapter books, of course, all fairy themed. It was like Tinkerbell and her friends or something like that. And obviously as a kid, I had an imagination, but it was hard for me to connect words and imagining those words. At least for me. I don't know what it's like for anyone else. And my dad was like, really sit there and like, I'm going to read these words to you, which like so kind of him considering that at the time his English wasn't very good. He's like, I'm going to read these words to you and I want you to imagine what I'm reading to you. And that's exactly what we did. We sat down, he read to me, and I was envisioning exactly what he was saying, and I literally felt something click in my head. It's like an audible click, and my life was forever changed. Like, my parents thought I was a menace before. This menace just learned how to read chapter books. I went berserk. I would always ask my parents to go to the library. That was my number one place to go. I got my own library card, which, fun fact, I actually still own my very first library card. Obviously, I can't use it anymore. I have a new one, but I still own, and it has like my little 7-year-old writing on it of my name. But I still own it to this day. It's in my wallet, so keep your library cards. It's like, I don't know, kind of sentimental. I think it's really cute. Anyways, so I would beg my parents to always take me to the library. And of course, my brothers would hate it because it's a library. What kind of kid likes to read? I was the only one out of the three of us that genuinely loved to read. They would read different kinds of books. So like they were really into Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And you know what? I think it was only Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I can't remember any other book that they read. I'm sure they would much rather do literally anything else on this earth besides go to a library, because what kind of child wants to go to a library? If I was 7, then they were, 4 and 5? So yeah, I don't even know if they knew how to read by then. Well, I mean, they could look at pictures. So they were at the picture book stage. They were noobs. They didn't really know what the reading game was really like. But yeah, I would always go to the library for my birthdays and for Christmas. I would always ask for a book. I would read just about anything, but it mainly tend to fall around like fairies and mythical creatures, dragons. Shout out dragons. I think I need to talk about that one day. Here's a little peek into my lore. When I was 10 years old, I was convinced I was part dragon and my name was Alphonse, and I would tell my friend Abby that I was a dragon, and she, bless her heart, was forced to believe me. And to this day, whenever I meet any of her new friends, she always talks about me and me being a dragon. And she would be like, hey guys, this is my friend Kiara. Did you know that she thinks she's part dragon? And so it kind of became like a running joke in my life. And it's kind of a little motif. So I think one day I'm going to get like a little dragon tattoo. I know for my personal library, I want to get a little dragon stamp that says from the den of Kiki. And it's going to be so dumb, but I think it'd be kind of cute and kind of on brand for me. Anyways, anything mythical, anything fantasy, I was a big fan of. And of course, as you know, the older I got, the more I changed, the books I read would change along with me. Like I remember in the 3rd grade, I discovered what horror books were. And oh my God, life changed. Obviously, the books that they had were kid friendly, but I would read stuff like Coraline, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and anything by Mary Downingham. Like, if you want, I remember, like, how old was I in the 3rd grade? I want to say like 8. I remember little 8-year-old me's, like, heart was pounding reading The Doll in the Garden by Mary Downingham. Really good book. I haven't read it since I was an 8-year-old, but I'm going to have to recommend it still. Once I hit middle school, I started reading more book series instead of individual books. So before it would be like a singular book. So Coraline is only one book. The Doll in the Garden, it's only one book. But once I got to middle school, I started reading series. And some of these series were books like Percy Jackson, a middle school classic. Let me know in the comments, like, who was your favorite Percy Jackson character and who was your parent? I was convinced that my parent was either Athena or, this is kind of embarrassing, Aphrodite. Like, I'm so full of myself. I was like, yeah, of course I'd be Aphrodite. Let me know whose house you guys wanted to be a part of. I also read Maximum Ride by James Patterson. That book series was so good until the very end. Like, to this day, I remember that it fell so flat. I was so upset. I don't know if you guys are going to read it. If you are, spoiler alert for the next like 10 seconds, so skip ahead 10 seconds. But the ending where everyone literally dies besides them and they're just in a whole new world. Hey, what the fuck? What kind of ending is that? Little me didn't want an ending like that. Little me was worried about the sun exploding. You think I wanted to know that the world was going to end? Hell no. I don't know. I mean, great series. James Patterson, you're a great author. You know better. You know good endings, and you just fell flat on that one. And I was so excited when it came out. So freaking excited. I begged my mom to let me have money for the book fair. Begged her so I can buy that book. And I wish I got my money back. I wish I could return that shit, because I was like, it's booty. It's straight booty. I did not like it. A couple other book series I read was The 9 Lives of Chloe King. Yeah, I bet that one got some gears turning in your head, huh? That's a classic. Also, of course, I read Divergent. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I don't know. It's because the first dystopian book series I read was The Hunger Games, which, still a Hunger Games fan. I'm so excited for the new book to come out. Can't believe in my ripe age I'm excited about a new Hunger Games book. Like, that's a crazy sentence. But I felt like after reading The Hunger Games, to me, Divergent was like a ripoff of The Hunger Games, if that makes sense. It's just about another girl who's special, who doesn't belong in any class, and blah, 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 blah. I don't know. It wasn't my favorite. I know everyone prefers Divergent over, well, not everyone, but there are some people out there who prefer Divergent over The Hunger Games, but to me, Hunger Games is number one. In high school, I don't remember reading a whole lot, just because obviously classes got harder and I got busier and I got a job and, things happen. So a majority of the books I read were required reading, so like Invisible Man or The Great Gatsby, or I can't remember any other book I read in high school. But it was in the 9th grade when I read The Song of Achilles for the first time. And in case you didn't know, that is my favorite book to this day, like, of all time. I'm the type of person who can't reread books because it's like, okay, I already know what's going to happen. Why would I want to reread it? That's effort. That takes effort for me. The Song of Achilles is so beautifully written. I want you to guess how many times I've read this book. I'm going to give you like 2 seconds to guess. Wrong. 14 times. I have read this book 14 times. It is highlighted basically all throughout the book because I annotated it. And different highlighters from different years. And I literally was thinking recently, should I read it again? Oh my God, it's so beautiful. If you guys are into, retellings of Greek mythology and Greek history, I highly, highly recommend it. Once I got into college, I also didn't read as much as I would have liked to because, again, classes get harder. I had a job along with going to school full time and, things get in the way. And I decided this year to set a goal of reading because in the past, I want to say probably 3 years, I've read 4 books total, which is nothing like how I used to read when I was younger. And I was like, that's not, I don't know. I feel like I needed to feed my brain. I needed to give it something other than the tiny little serotonin boost you get from your phone from watching TikToks or Instagram Reels. So this year I set a goal of reading 10 books. And guys, so excited to say this. As of recording this, I am on 7 books. Yes, round of applause for me. Round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh my God, you guys. Thank you so much. I'm blushing. I'm just really proud of myself for actually sitting down, finding the time to sit down and read a book. Because, if I think about it, if I look, which super embarrassing, if I look at my screen time, I'm like, I so could have dedicated a couple of those hours. Yeah, a couple of those hours. So there's a lot of hours of screen time. I could have dedicated a couple of them to reading. And honestly, I'm kind of sad that I didn't, but I decided to change that before I go to bed. Instead of doom scrolling on TikTok, I decided to pick up a book or put on some headphones and listen to an audiobook. And honestly, doing that has helped me reach my goal so much faster than I originally thought I would have. I thought I would have been probably on book 2 by now. But no, 7 whole books. Let me list them off for you. I read My Sister, the Serial Killer, a really good book, a very, very quick read. It was only 250 pages. It was really good. I liked it. A Lesson in Vengeance. That one was an audiobook. I think that was my only audiobook so far in this list. It was okay. I liked the first 2/3 of it, and then I felt like the ending fell a little flat. I just feel like if you're gonna write a mystery book, you should actually go through with the mystery part of it. I felt like it was very predictable. I figured out the ending before the book ended, and I don't know. The writing was beautiful. I really liked it, and I'm interested in reading some more of Victoria Lee's works, but as for me, that book, I would give it maybe 3 out of 5 stars. I also read Animal Farm by George Orwell, a classic, also a very short read. I think it was literally only 100 pages, so it took me 1 afternoon to finish that book. I read Serious Concerns by Wendy Cope, which is a collection of poetry. So I don't know if you guys would count it as a book. I counted it as a book. It was actually a Christmas gift. My boyfriend gave it to me for Christmas. And let me read you my favorite poem in there. It's the whole reason I asked for it. Here we go. It's called The Orange by Wendy Cope. At lunchtime, I bought a huge orange. The size of it made us all laugh. I peeled it and shared it with Robert and Dave. They got quarters and I had a half. And that orange, it made me so happy, as ordinary things often do. Just lately, the shopping, a walk in the park, this is peace and contentment. It's new. The rest of the day was quite easy. I did all the jobs on my list and enjoyed them and had some time over. I love you, and I'm glad that I exist. I don't know. I just think that's such a beautiful poem. And all her other works are so funny. She's such a funny poet. Yeah, that's the word. Sorry. She's such a funny poet. And a lot of her work, at least in this one, is about romance and relationships. And she was in a situationship back in the 90s. Like, that's kind of crazy. But that was also a very quick read. I'm personally counting it as a book. It's between you and God of whether or not you agree with me. I also read a book called Earthlings by Sayaka Murata, I think is her name. It's translated from Japanese, and I read one of her books past year or two called Convenience Store Woman, which is a beautiful book. I was a big fan of it, and I thought this book would be similar to that, and I was completely wrong. The amount of trigger warnings you need before going into this book is actually kind of insane. And mind you, I went in without any trigger warnings. I went in reading her first book, Convenience Store Woman, which is a nice fluffy little book, thinking that this would be similar, and nope, not at all. It wasn't anything like that at all, and honestly, I was a little traumatized by the end of it. Every 10 pages, I was probably asking myself, what the actual fuck am I reading? And yeah, if you want to read it, I don't know if I recommend it, to be honest with you, but listen, hey, that's between you. That's between you and God. If you want to read it, by all means, go ahead. Just please know it is heavy content, and there are a lot of trigger warnings. So I would look that up before you read this book. And the last 2 books I've read are actually in a series. The first one is A Court of Thorns and Roses, and is actually the first that my book club is reading this year. So I'm really excited to see what they think of it. And I read the second book of the series, A Court of Mist and Fury. Personally, I think that one was better than the first book. Lots of yearning, lots of pining. Love that shit. Love to yearn. That's been kind of like the theme this week, honestly, in my personal life. Yearning and longing. Ugh, so good. But both books were super great. I'm currently reading the third book in the series, A Court of Wings and Ruin, I think is what it's called. And I like it so far. I'm on chapter 14, and I think it's pretty good. I don't know. I haven't heard much about this book, so I'm excited to see how I feel about it. I'm also reading Down the Drain by Julia Fox, which is a memoir. I think I mentioned it in the last podcast. It's pretty good. I like it so far. I think it's going to take me a little bit longer to read this one because, I don't know, nonfiction tends to take a little longer for me to read because it's actual information I need to digest and not like a story, if that makes sense. So while hers is, yes, a story about her life, since it is, something that happened in real life in real time, it takes me a little bit longer to read books like that. I'm also reading Funny Story by Emily Henry. My friend Abby recommended Emily Henry, the author, to me because she writes light, fluffy romance books, and she thinks I might like it. So I was like, sure, why not? So I use the Libby app, shout out the Libby app, and checked it out from my local library. And I'm really excited. I'm on chapter 2, and I mean, it's good so far for the first 2 chapters. So we'll see. I'll probably update you guys on the next podcast or the podcast after that on whether or not I like these books or if I finish them. The last book I'm reading is The God of the Woods. I cannot remember the author's name at this time. I think it is a newer book. And that one I'm actually not reading. I'm listening to it just because I don't own the book and it's not in my library and I don't have enough money to buy it. So I'm using my Spotify account to listen to it. And I think I'm on... It's not really done in chapters. It's done in timelines. But if I were to give it a numerical value, I would say it's probably like chapter 6. It's interesting. I didn't realize that you'd be jumping in between times so often in the book. It's like every chapter you're in a different time point, and it can get kind of confusing. I think those kinds of books would be better in a physical form than an audio, but I like it so far. I just have a hard time trying to put my mind in whatever point in time that they're in. But overall, it's a fine book. I think all the books I'm reading right now, I don't have any like huge feelings for. I'm just starting them out, and I think they're all fine so far. So maybe in this next episode, I might finish one of them. Maybe it'll be a couple episodes from them, but I'll let you guys know how I feel about these books as I go along. I mentioned earlier that I have a book club. Yes, me, I have a book club. And I'm so excited to introduce it to you guys. It is called the Bad Bitches Book Club. And it's for bad bitches who like to read. I decided to create this book club because I wanted to be held accountable for my reading. Like I said, I thought by now I would be on book 2, kind of following along like our book club's timeline, and obviously surpassed it. But I love the idea of a book club. I've never been in one before, and I thought, you know what? Like, why don't I go ahead and start one? No one's going to start one for me. So I texted a couple of my friends and was like, hey, do you want to join my book club? And I think all of them, except for maybe 2, said that they wanted to join. The other 2, they were just busy with life and didn't really have the time, which, like, totally understandable. I told them, like, you're more than welcome to hop into the book club whenever you want. Like, whenever we start our next book, like, you're more than welcome to join us. But our next meeting is March 29th, and I am so excited. We'll be discussing the book we just read, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses, and we'll also be picking our next book. I kind of decided on how we're going to choose our next book. We're either going to do like a little spinny wheel that has all the books that everyone wants to read, and whatever it lands on is the book that we're going to read, just to kind of make it fair. Plus, I think it's a good way for everyone to get a chance to read a book that they're wanting to read. So I know, like, my friend Brooke is wanting to read The Housemaid. Abby, unfortunately, wants to read anything that has to do with hockey or ice skating, I think is what she said. I don't really have a book for the next book club. I need to sit down and think about that one. What kind of books would you guys want to read in a book club? I did a little poll with them to see what kind of books that they were into. A lot of it was like romance, fantasy, YA, that sort of stuff. Personally, not my cup of tea. I'm more into horror, but I know not everyone's into it. I think, you know what would be a good one? 7 Days in June. I heard that book's really good, and I feel like it's a pretty easy read. Either 7 Days in June or, Sunburn. I've been wanting to read Sunburn lately, which is an LGBTQ story. I've read all the reviews and I've heard it's a really good book, so I think that'd be kind of exciting for us to read. But after our meeting, whatever book we end up landing on, I'll let you guys know. And if you want to read along with us, that'd be kind of fun. If you guys want to, join kind of in the sidelines and read a little book with us, I'll probably update you guys on how I feel about the book. I think that'll be a fun way for you guys to kind of interact with this podcast. And if you're staring at your phone thinking, who the hell do you think you are telling me what to read? You're so right, bestie. You don't have to read. You can be illiterate, and that's okay. We're all here for you. Illiteracism is a disease, but you'll get a cure one day. Is it illiteracism? Is that a word? Illiteracism. I'm gonna have to Google that. Let me know if there are any books that you guys like to read. I'm always interested to see and to hear what everyone else loves to read. I know, like I said, my favorite genres tend to be thriller, mystery, horror. Unfortunately, I have been getting into the romantasy genre. It's just too good, man. So A Court of Mist and Fury, oh my god, that book, it was too good. It was full of pining and angst, and I love yearning. Yearning is such a good feeling for me, and I think it's so great whenever I read it. I love a good enemies to lovers. It's just been so long since I've read a romance book or a fantasy book that I forgot how it felt. Tell me why I was literally kicking my feet up in the air like a little girl, twirling my hair and my finger, being like, tee-hee, oh my god, they're in love, tee-hee. That's so embarrassing. Oh my god. I don't know. Highly recommend the series. If you guys have read it before, let me know what you think, because, it's too good, man. It was too good. I'm such a big fan. I'm kind of sad to see the series end, but hey, all good things must come to an end, But yeah, I think that's the end of this episode. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what kind of books you guys are reading. If you guys have anything on your TBR, your to be read. Let me know if there's anything you think I should read. I'm like to think that I'm fairly open about different genres. Obviously, I have my own genres that I enjoy, but I will also read just about anything. So if you guys have any book recommendations, let me know. I really would like to hear what you guys think. But thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.